Right, this is a bucket full of tools. Got the Marshalltown, got the Refina Super Flex, got the Ox Flex, whatever that one is. Got the Nella Black Edition, got the Plaster Flex, got Speedskims. But the big question is, do we need all these trowels and when do we use them in plastering? In today's video, we're going to cover how to use these trowels and do it correctly so we get a good finish. And then I'm going to show you the secret weapon I'm using. I've only been using it for 2 weeks, but I'm going to reel that to you, and it's a mega one. Before we start, got a little package from Ox. They ended up sending me a load of clothes. Got polos, got a little hoodie, got a jacket thing, some trousers, probably too big for me, some shorts, got a little hoodie, got that polo, got another jumper. So that's very kind of him. So much clothes, I don't think I'll get to wear them all, but anyway. So I'm going to move these out of the way, throw that in the front room, get my tools out of the way, and then we're going to get into when to use these bloody trowels and how to use them for plastering. Let's go. Right, settled down, everything's out of the way. So I am going to show you a video on how I use these tools, but first, to give you a bit of an idea on how it all works, I just wanted to go through the 4 types of trowels there is. So we've got 4 main types of trowels and spatulas that you use at plastering. And you've got to realise which ones you are to know when to use them. So you've got your main trowel. That's what I call the base trowel. That's the trowel you use to apply the plaster, flatten, and that's your rigid stainless steel plaster trowel. For example, your Marshalltown Perma Shapes, your Nella Premium trowel, your trowel that you buy at the beginning. And that is the trowel you can use throughout the whole plastering. That is what the old boys used to live on. And that is a trowel that the only trowel actually you can use throughout the whole process. So that's your first trowel. Then you've got your second type, and then you've got your spatulas. They're designed for flattening. So that comes in after the application of the plaster. And they're designed to flatten the plaster. They say it's for finishing, but I rely it's solely just for flattening. So that's your second type. They're your Speedskims, that's your Refina spats, like your ergo shapes, and then Nella have done a new one as well called the Nella spat. So that's theirs. That's that realm. Then we get into the third type. We get the semi-flexible trowels. This is your borderline between your base trowel and your flex trowel. It's that middle ground. And their base, I still class that as polishing in my eyes, but they say you can use it for flattening stages. In the clip coming up, I'm going to show you exactly when to use that because I still think they can cause a bit of troubles. So in my eyes, the semi-flex trowels will still catch you out. So I'll show you in a clip of me plastering. I'll show you exactly when I use that and when I think is the best time to do it. Because I think this still can be a bit dangerous. I've done plastering where I've used the semi-flex trowel too early and it has left ripples in the wall. And you'll only see it when you've got a side with glancing light. So you think it's going well, and then it bites you in the ass. So that's the Refina Superflex 2. That's your Nella Mediflex, Medi being medium flex, that's in the name. And it's that type of range of trowel which is your semi-flex. And finally, you've got your Flexi Trowels. These are in my opinions, just for polishing. It's just to get that nice finish at the end. And it's good to reduce a bit of pressure off the joints, but in my opinion, that is solely designed for the finish. So that is your Refina Superflex 1, your Ox Flex Trowels, and then your Nella Flexi Trowels. Marshalltown do Flexi Trowels as well, but I forgot what they're called and they're bloody expensive, so I always leave them out. But anyway, so they're the 4 types of trowels on the market. What I'm going to do now is show you a clip of me plastering a wall. I've already applied the first coat and flattened it in this video. I don't want to cover old territory. I know I've got a lot of subscribers who watch videos every week, so I don't want to bang on the same stuff. I want to keep this content fresh and relevant. So it's going to be a clip of me plastering a wall, but I'll go through each stage and what tool I'll use, which one I go to next, and which one I think is the safest bet. I also show you my new secret weapon. I've only used it recently, about the past 2 weeks. I've had it for about 9 months. I've just never touched it. And it is a brilliant tool to use. So watch the clip ahead. let us know what you think at the end. And then thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you like what we're doing. And thanks again. Leave any comments below on what you think your tools would be to use at which point. And let us know what you think. Cheers. Okay, so this is where we're going to apply the plaster. As you can see, we're applying the plaster onto the wall. It's already had the first coat. It's already been flattened. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that in a minute with the exact same tools I use. But for now, what we're using is the Marshalltown Perma Shape. This is the base trowel. This is the solid trowel I was talking to you about before. The one that you can use throughout the whole process of plastering. This is what the old boys used to only use. They only used to rely on this trowel. And as you can see, it is the all-rounder. So it's made with a rigid steel. That means when you're applying a plaster, instead of, say if it was using it with a Flexi Trowel, it'd ripple. This makes sure that it'll apply the plaster in an even, flat manner. If it wasn't rigid, if it didn't have that sort of strength to the trowel, then you really wouldn't be getting your plaster flat from stage one. So this is the only trowel in this type of trowel. Like I said, it's Marshalltown Perma Shape, but you can get Nella ones. They've got the premium trowels, Oxdo one. But basically this type of trowel can be used throughout the whole process of plastering. But let me repeat, this is the only trowel that you can use throughout the whole process. Don't ever use a Flexi Trowel, semi-flex trowel, anything other than this trowel to apply the plaster with, because you will get bad results and it will come up and bite you in the arse. Trust me, it's happened. It's not done anyone any favours. So, like I said, this is the base trowel that you can use throughout the whole process of plastering, and this is what you use at the beginning to apply a plaster with. So again, it's the only trowel you can use at this stage. Then we're coming up to stage 2. This is where we flatten the plaster, and this is where you can use what I'm looking at here. This is a spatula. This is the best way to flatten a wall because it's got a longer length. It's made with a rigid material, not as rigid as the Marshalltown, but this particular spatula, which is the Ox Speedskim ST, this is made with a thick material so it won't flex under pressure. So now this is when we can use this particular spatula to flatten the plaster. Now you can keep using the Marshalltown, but again at this stage you don't want to be using any Flexi Trowels, no semi-flex trowels. The only thing you should be using to flatten your first and second coat of plaster is either the Speedskim or the Marshalltown Perma Shape, or whichever base trowel you're using at the time. But don't ever at this stage, still don't go onto the Flexi Trowels. For example, I do highly recommend you use a spatula like the Speedskim ST because it will give you an overall flatter finish just because of the length and the fact it acts like a rule, like as if you would use in rendering. So that's pretty cool. Now we're going to stage 3. And now what we're going to do is flatten this after using the spatula. Everyone asks me, I get quite a few questions, why are you going back to the Marshalltown? Why are you using this trowel again? It's because, in all honesty, the Speedskims and the spatulas are great for flattening a plaster, but they don't leave a nice finish behind. You still have bits of plaster to fill. You still have to scrape the edges of your wall like you've seen me before, scraping between the plaster and the ceiling. You still have to do that. You still have to treat your reveals. You still have to scrape your corner beads. So even though the Speedskims and spatulas are great to use, you still need to use your trowel in between it because there's still some filling to do. The plaster isn't perfect. I mean, in particular, the Speedskim ST leaves quite a rough grain behind. It does leave a bit of a texture, and you just need to flatten it with your Marshalltown trowel. So you might be saying, what's the point using this spatula in the first place? It does get your wall a lot flatter than what you would using a traditional trowel. That's in my opinion anyway. So as you can see, I've also got a little head of a reveal. I wouldn't be able to get that with the spatula. And for me, I think a trowel for reveals is perfect because you've got the overall length which fits into the reveal anyway. So that to me is, you always stick to your trowel for that. Again, I don't need to beat on about it, but even at this stage where we're flattening on after the second coat, I still wouldn't be using the Flexi Trowels. I'll actually tell you when you can use them, but at this point I still won't be touching any Flexi Trowels, not even the semi-flexible ones. I just believe that even at this point the plaster still has a bit of play in it and you might still risk damaging your walls. So as you can see, I'm flattening the plaster using my water brush, And we're just filling in any holes and giving it a nice polished finish before we move on to the next stage. And the other reason you want to be using your trowel at this stage is I've got a wet corner here, two wet angles meeting. You won't get it as smooth with the Speedskim. So I'm using my trowel to get that internal nice and crisp. If you do it now at the early stages, you won't be battling with it. And I like to try and get them as neat as possible at the beginning. So then you're not battling it, you're not chasing time. And as you can see, just use your base trowel to really get in there and give it a nice crisp finish. Right, so this is my secret weapon, the secret weapon of choice. I've only just started using this recently. This is a Speedskim, but the steel version. So this is semi-flexible. Again, the reason I didn't use this at the beginning is because in my opinion, it still has a bit of flex in it. But I use it at this stage now. This is the first trowel. We're into the realms now of we're starting to polish the plaster. And this has been an absolute godsend for me. I only started using it about a week ago, but I really do highly advise using this at this stage of plastering. I whipped out this is the Speedskim, the steel version. I can't remember what the initials are. I'll find out in a bit. But SF, I think that's the one. I've just seen a glimpse of it there. But this is a brilliant piece of kit. If you haven't used it so far, I'm really impressed with it. So this is my secret weapon of choice at the moment. Very impressed. Very good for flattening and plaster, but it also leaves a nice finish behind. So at this point, like I said, it's the first trowel. You can use the Speedskim, the steel version. And at this point, I'd recommend you could be using the semi-flex trowels. So that's your Naylor Mediflex, your Refina Super Flex 2. The semi-flex trowels are okay at this stage. I won't go for the full flex, but at this stage, we're okay to use them. So now you can finally whip out your Flexi Trowel. Now we're coming up to the penultimate stage. This is the wet trowel, and this is where you can get your Flexi Trowel out. This is where you can use your Refina Super Flex 1, you can use your Nella Flex Mark 2, your Nella Flex, you can use your Ox Ultra Flex. Any of them trowels you can be using at this stage. Like I said, this is the wet trowel. The wall is pretty much dry now. You're not going to get much movement out of it. This is where you use your Flexi Trowel, because the main role of the Flexi Trowel is to give it a nice finish. This is where you polish the wall. This is where the wet trowel comes in, because all this is really made for, in my opinion, is to give that wall a nice polish finish. It will flatten it to a point, but at this stage the plaster is pretty much dry. All we're doing now is giving it that final push, a bit of icing on the cake, if you will, just to give it that much needed bit of time to give it that final polish up. So this is when you use your Flexi Trowels. Again, you can still use your traditional Marshalltown. Like I said, that can be used throughout the whole process of plastering, but the only problem is if you've got a new trowel like the Marshalltown, it does need a bit of time of breaking in. That means it needs to be worn, you need to sand it, and it will take a while for you to get a nice finish from your Marshalltown. But if you're there, then by all means, it's probably one of the best trowels you ever had if you break it in at that point. For me, the Flex Trowel gives a nice finish, but it also relieves a lot of stress on my joints. That's why I go for them. It just makes the process a bit nicer, a bit easier to deal with. You know, if you're doing with a solid trowel all day, every day, trust me, it will knacker your joints up and you will feel it. So that's the Flexi Trowel. Lovely, lovely. And now we're going to move on to the final stage. That's the dry trowel. What I recommend you should use is the Refina Plaza Flex. That's the one I'm using now. It's a beautiful plastic trowel and it leaves the best finish. As if you've seen any of my videos, you know I'm a big fan of the Refina Plaza Flex. Any plastic trowels, so that can be the Ox plastic. Nella do 2 plastic trowels if I'm not mistaken. Any of them plastic trowels I recommend doing for your last trowel over. It just leaves a nice finish, and it is a matte finish, which makes it a lot easier for the painters to get in and get their work done. So like we've been through, I'll do a quick recap. We've used the Marshalltown at the beginning. We flattened in using the Speedskim ST, which is the plastic blade. Then again we flattened in with the Marshalltown, still using that base trowel because the wall is still very wet. Then we moved on to the Speedskim SF. That's when you can be getting your semi-flex trowel out. because at that point the plaster's starting to set and it won't affect it too much. And then we've got the wet trowel where you use your Flexi Trowel because you're literally polishing it up. And then we finish off with the plastic trowels. In my example, mine was a Refina Plaza Flex. Lovely trowel to use and it leaves an amazing finish. So that's my recommendation on trowels and when to use them. So thank you so much for watching this video, really appreciate it. Please feel free to leave any comments behind. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and keep an eye out because we're going to be releasing videos every week. So thanks a lot, Blaine Gray, Plaster for Beginners. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.